welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to this topic. I'm sure most of us who are on this meeting today will need to know something about how the future is panning out. And a large part of our lives are also related to how we spend our time on work. If we consider 80 years as a standard age for somebody, after about 25 years of growing up and getting educated, I think we spend next 35 to 40 years in the work. So the work life actually takes a major amount of our lives. So how that is going to pan out in the coming years, that is something which should know about it and also sensitize our younger generation, our children and others in the society. To do that, I would like to set the context of our meeting today. I would like to welcome the speakers at the outset. So we have got Mr. Sashi Kumar, who is the head of sales for Indeed.com, who has joined us from Bangalore. Shashi is an expert, industry expert with advertising and recruitment. In fact, major part of his experience is in recruitment industry. So I thought he would actually bring in a very, very relevant perspective about what we are going to talk today. Second speaker is Mr. Ramakrishna Bodu, who has done several episodes with me on my podcast. He's somebody who is independent career counselor. He's got very, very rich experience in different IT fields with renowned companies like TCS, EA, Capgemini, Genpact, and GE Capital. He brings a huge amount of knowledge and depth into this subject. My third speaker today is Mrs. Vidya Kesh, who is joined us from Pune. Madam Vidya is an independent counselor, career counselor. She is also an independent teacher. She has good experience in the corporate life as well. She has worked in ICICI Bank, as well as she has done formal teaching in the schools, Poddar International School and Suguna PIP. I think this is the school in Coimbatore. So we got a varied a group of speakers who are going to really give us different perspective about what is happening in the field of work. So, there are futurists, there are so many of them. You can actually Google about this gentleman called Gerard Leonard. He says, the next 10 years will see more changes in the world compared to the last 100 years. And you can Google about him. You can see a lot of YouTube videos about him. And I really think that what he says makes sense, a lot of it actually. So that is the way the world is shaping. And obviously that's going to also affect the way we are going to work. The second gentleman is Ravi Kumar. He is the president of Infosys. He has made, again, this is something which I picked up in one of his conversation with in a podcast or a YouTube video. He said the future of work is that people who can learn how to learn how to unlearn, and again learn how to learn. I mean, that is the way the future of work will be. So which means that our education system alone may not be sufficient to take us where we need to be in the future. Now, going further, what is the global trend? What are the global trends which are broadly affecting our lives? The first and foremost is digitization, and this is something which is coming in a big way. It is only growing multiple times, multiple fold as we go into future. Decarbonization is very, very important because we cannot afford to increase the temperature of our earth beyond 2 degrees by mid of this century. Otherwise, we will have catastrophic impact of this in the future. Health and population and health, the world today is 7.5 billion people, and it is estimated that by end of the century we'll be 11 billion people on this earth. And obviously, not all countries are, young. There are a lot of countries which are actually growing older. So if we have so much of people, then obviously we need a lot of energy, we need a lot of food. So energy is one of the next important topic so these are the four broad topics which are actually affecting the way of our lives, and these will have important impact on our future of work as well. Now, going a little deeper into what's happening on the global trends. First is about digitization. As you can see, the top 5 big tech companies, they are, their sales revenue is 1.4 trillion US dollars, which is more than the GDP of Mexico. I mean, Mexico, one country's GDP. And all other facts which I have just put in. The other thing which you can see here is that 86% of web search is happening on the Google, and Facebook, as we speak, has 2.9 billion people as monthly active users. And it is estimated that in about 20-30 years, the number of active users, the internet users, will go to a level of about 9 billion in coming years. So these are some of the trends which are happening on the front of the digitization. And e-commerce again is something which is going to grow big time. By 2030, it is estimated the volumes will be around close to about 67,000 billion US dollars. So these are some of the trends on the digitization front. Now, coming to decarbonization front, we spoke about why it is so important to keep the carbon emission under control. Otherwise, the impact will be very, very catastrophic. So we need to keep our temperature of Earth below the 2 degree and possibly 1.5 degrees increase. Otherwise, the impact will be catastrophic. And there are some goals which the most of the countries decided on how to achieve it in the last meeting in Glasgow, COP26 goals. And if you look at India's commitment, India is actually also made very, very strong commitments, and by 2070 India is expected to become zero net emission country as well. So this is again will have impact on the way the future of work is going to be. Now, coming to population and healthcare, if you look at the first graph here, you'll see the different colors. So those yellow and yellow variants are the countries where the population of Earth is relatively young, whereas the other darker colors are the countries where the population is actually aging. And the other thing is that by 2050, it is estimated that the world population will become 9 billion. So in a way, it is when the population increases, obviously that's going to also impact the way the resources are getting utilized. So there'll be a lot of scarcity on these resources, and also we'll see how that is going to impact India as a country. And as most of the countries are getting older, so obviously that means that you need to give a lot of focus on the healthcare. So healthcare will have a lot of digital impact as well, because to really scale up the way we need to do healthcare, we cannot do it with the traditional way of doing it. We'll have to have a lot of technology involved into that. If you look at India, I mean, this is something which is important for people whose children are in the school or early career. So the most important time period which we need to look at is that children who are born between 1997 to 2011, they are one of the biggest in India. They are roughly about 36 crore in India. While this is very good, but at the same time, what we need to look at is that these people will have intense competition across their timeline, starting from schooling to the career and going forward. So while this is good for India as a country because we have such a vast population of young people, at the same time, it is also important that they should be made aware that the competition is going to be intense as well. We talked about the energy security because if we have so much of people, I mean, India, if you're talking about India, we have a population of 1.45 billion or about 145 crore, and we are going to remain fairly young country till about 2060, 2050, 2060. So we will need a lot of energy, and currently 80% of India's energy is coming from conventional energy, and that has to change. Otherwise, the way things are, we cannot afford to give so much of energy requirement to a large population otherwise. So there will be a lot of work happening on the nuclear energy. There will be work on the recyclability of the energy, the renewable energy. There will be a lot of investment on the hydrogen as a energy source, and the big grids will probably be replaced as smart grids as we go forward. And another concept which is also coming up very strongly is that there will be a lot of digital twins, which means that the technology intervention in the energy, making it energy clean as well as making it more available. The use of digital twins will be there, and there'll be a lot of work also on the battery. Because we will have to depend on lot of battery to store the non-conventional or renewable energy, because when we produce those energy, we need to store somewhere to utilize them later on. So a lot of work will happen in this. It's already happening. More will happen on this. Now coming to the what's happening on the work front. On the work front, what we see is that we have seen that already. Pandemic has shown work from anywhere is something which has become reality already. A lot of organizations are actually moving from role-based to skill-based contracts. Jobs are getting replaced with contracts and projects. There'll be a lot of more focus on the hybrid working. There'll be more automation, which means that repetitive works will actually get automated. They will, only the smart work will be left for human being to do it to be done. And we saw earlier what Mr. Ravi Kumar of Infosys mentioned. So there'll be more focus on skilling, upskilling, and reskilling. So what is more required as 21st century skill is, apart from the, I'm not saying that we don't need the technical skills, but we will continue to also need a lot of 21st century skills, which is more to do with cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, and self-leadership skills. I will not go through each of them in detail. I will share all this in the later part of the presentation. And also there'll be focus on digital skill as well. Under digital skill, of course, you have digital fluency, use of software, understanding digital system. And I would like to also add here that we need to also learn how to have digital discipline. I think this is going to be the new thing which is required. Otherwise, we'll become slaves of digital skills. So what we need as 21st century, the biggest skill which we need is adaptability. And I think our speakers today will talk more about all this during their conversation. So I know I try to give a lot of insight about what is going on in the trends of the world. So those will have a lot of impact on the future work. So this is not to really bog down with a lot of information, but I think let's now hear from the experts as to how they see the future of work. I will stop sharing now and we will dive into the discussion now. Uh, as a starting point, I think I'll bring Shashi into this conversation. Shashi, you come from the recruitment industry with over 20 years of experience, and you have probably seen how the trends are on the way the organizations are actually recruiting now, and how do you see that panning out in the coming years?
Thanks, Siba. Thanks for inviting me here, and thanks for that wonderful presentation. I think it encapsulates a lot of the changes, a lot of trends that we will see in the future. And a lot of that will define how this world shapes up as we go by. But what do we, as people who are looking for work, people who are preparing for the future, people who are going to look for employment or currently are employed, what do we do of it? So what if for everybody who's on this meeting or who's on this call, if God came and said, you know what, forget, you're going to forget everything that Siba spoke about till now, but you have the choice to retain one part of the information that Siba has given today. What should that be? I think the answer is what you presented in slide 11, which is essentially talks about skills. A lot of these trends will open up a lot of industries. Today, we can think of what could possibly open up 10 years from now, 5 years from now, but then we could be wrong. We could see that, okay, now due to the energy crisis and the reason and the need to move away from fossil fuel, maybe solar opens up. Possibly tomorrow there's something else that will come and replace solar. So for a person who's looking to be employed, who's looking to be continuously employed, what do you need to do? Great, you need to skill yourself with hard skills, but what all of us need to focus on possibly are the three things that you spoke of on that slide. Cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, and self-leadership. I think there's nothing more important for us to look at as people who will be looking for employment, looking to sort of engage with the world of work. You need to be able to solve problems. You need to have understanding of bias. You need to be able to think in an agile way. In other words, you need to be able to be equipped to deal with change rather than predict what the change will be and prepare in a very hard way towards addressing that change. Prepare yourselves to pick up whatever changes happen and as they happen in the world. So to me, it is about those soft skills that will define what will be the most needed in as we go forward. And I somehow think soft skills is a misnomer, specifically because of the word soft. They are not soft. They take longer to inculcate than what we are called hard skills. Hard skills you can practice and practice and practice, maybe learning coding or doing something else, and you can acquire it in 1 or 2 years. But soft skills are something that we develop right from the time we are children till the time we get to adults. And this is basis the kind of experiences we have growing up, basis the experiences that we get from learning, and basis how we interact with other people. That is why inculcating soft skills is not only important and possibly a little harder than hard skills. And going forward from a world of work, I think soft skills will prove to be very, very important, because when we speak of soft skills, it talks about how agile you're going to be, how open you are to change. 3, how are you going to interact with the environment around you? If that environment changes, are you adaptable enough to make changes for the changing environment? And finally, how do you display your leadership and how you're able to take on, when I say leadership, I'm not saying moving up the career ladder. It's about, okay, if I'm confronted with something, how do I adapt to that? How do I lead the way for everybody else, irrespective of what I'm doing in my role? I think that's what is going to be important. Like you rightly said, the way companies interact with employees is changing. The first that started changing for quite some time, but I think the pandemic sort of accelerated some of those trends. We will definitely be seeing a lot of companies looking to hybrid work as a means of engaging their current employees. So what does that mean for the kind of skills that you have? What it means is soft skills become even more important when you're going to be not always in office, which means that your interaction, one major part of our communication strategy is our body language, our how we speak, uh, our how we punctuate, how do we gesticulate, all of that is important. A lot of that is going to be taken away because if you're going to be interacting with most of your colleagues, most of your superiors, your clients, and any other stakeholders, mostly over screen, you need to have the skills to be able to communicate. The other thing is when you're in a digital platform, your attention span is less. You could be sitting in a room, possibly participating in a conference like this or a discussion like this, and your kid could be playing in the corner. And which is not going to happen in a conference room, right? When you're in office. So there are distraction, attention spans are less. How are you able to communicate your ideas well? Those are the kind of skills that will be important. How are you able to use props and other technology to make sure that your idea is well represented and taken forward? I think that's going to be important as we go forward. So in summary, I think hard skills important, but going forward, it's important that we develop soft skills, specifically around the areas that you highlighted in your presentation: cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, and self-leadership. And just sort of to reiterate, self-leadership is not how you climb the career, the career ladder, but it's about how you show leadership in the job you're doing, and you are seen as doing innovative and path-breaking work.
Fantastic. I think you really said it rightly, because a lot of experts do mention that the jobs of future, probably jobs which are going to be there in next 10 years, we don't even know how they are going to be. So while the focus on learning the hard skills are important, and broadly, I mean, not to confuse the viewers and the listeners going forward, uh, we talked about the global trends because it is going to be the areas where work is going to be there. Some kind of economic work has to be done in those areas. So broadly, you can take up education or hard skill in those areas. At the same time, the focus on soft skills is something which has to happen. Is that right?
Completely right. And Siva, it's not something that's just true for the future, it's true of the past as well. Let me give you an example. Even in our lifetimes, when I was born, my granddad was still working. He was a head clerk in a pharmaceutical company in Calcutta. That pharmaceutical company exists even today, but they don't employ head clerks or clerks for that matter. So an entire set of roles that existed within my lifetime does not exist in any industry today. So change is constant. Think about, okay, grandfather very far off. When my father started working, he would have those two trays in and out where you had files, right? And even within his lifetime, we moved from that to emails. So it's not like change is something that is going to come in the future. And that's something which we need to be apprehensive about. It has always happened and it will continue to happen. It is how we build ourselves to be adaptive to the change. How do we build ourselves to thrive in any environment? Like you rightly said, Siva, those are the emerging industries. But when you're looking at hard skills, if you're going to go away taking away the fact that, okay, I'm a student today, I can see that carbon emission is a huge problem, and I can see that electric vehicles are great, and I'm going to dedicate myself only to the study of how to build electric vehicles using the lithium ion technology or whatever, and I'm not going to think of what else is required. Chances are that lithium ion technology will get outdated in 2 years
Yes.
from now, and there's something else that comes up. What do you do with all the hard skills? Which is why the soft skills are important, because they enable you to adapt hard skills as things come by. If that changes, you are going to be able to change. So that was broadly what my point was.
Fantastic. Yeah, absolutely. You're right. I think, uh, yeah, the only thing is you also mentioned about the past. Probably the past changes happened over a period of time, maybe as at a slightly longer duration. but the changes of future are going to be more frequent. I think,
Hmm.
as somebody said, the half-life of skill is getting reduced and reduced drastically. Yeah, so at this point of time, I'd like to bring Mr. Ramkrishna Bodu to the conversation, and I would like you to really focus on what can be done for children at a younger age in terms of bringing the soft skill development, because this is something you cannot do it in a year. Maybe it will take years to really practice this. And as a career mentor, you have been dealing with so many schools, so many children and parents. What would be your advice to the parents, especially because I think today we have got a lot of parents here who are with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Mishraji, for having me here. It's always wonderful to be part of these conversations. And I also congratulate Vidya ma'am and Sashi for their contribution. And of course, Vidya ma'am is going to speak soon. I'm sure you're going to give her an opportunity as well. And thank you all others for taking time, which is wonderful. So I think we all, I'm considering all of us having, children here, God's grace, early teens or teens, that age group, or little younger ones. So there are two things I am sure consciously or subconsciously we would have noticed in our younger minds with our younger children. This is basically instant gratification and false sense of entitlement. They are born with these as a given thing. Now imagine when we were of that age, 15, 14, 13 years of age, if we want to literally get something from our parents, the gratification is always delayed. You study well, you get to this stage, then I'm going to get this. But today, if you don't get something what your kid asks you for, it's going to be a big, issue in the home. So the point I'm trying to make, instant gratification and false sense of entitlement, because we as their elder generation or our elder generation, we have taken mostly the basic needs requirements has been fulfilled in the last two generations of us and our parents. Now the younger minds which we're dealing with, they are talking about the quality. They are not talking about the quantity of life. They're talking about the quality of life. But yet, we as elder generation or parents, we are still stuck at the quantity point of view. We are not looking at the quality what these youngsters are looking. That's what is the biggest friction that comes, between the parents and children of this, this time. We were, our parents' generation would have done one job for 30, 40 years, same office, same desk, probably, maybe a little bit of change here, there. We could have taken, 2 or 3 shifts, but precisely in the same career. But the younger generation for the last 10 years are actually experimenting, literally. And the surveys and studies have already shown that these young minds are going to change at least 3 to 4 jobs in the initial 5 years. I'm not saying changing company. They change, they shift their careers. That's what is happening. That's what is happening. But the big question is, are they ready to actually embrace all that? Though their wish list, because of instant gratification and false sense of entitlement, they believe that they can do everything and anything. Literally, where we were little conservative as their parent generation, like, yeah, I'm good with this, let me flow like a river, let me not have too many tides, kind of it. Now, as Shashi rightly brought out, one key element that was missing through their journey of these young children is, holistic development. We call it as a soft skill, which is pretty good, but I would term it a little, broadly as a holistic development. And I'm sure some of us would recall the cartoons that were made on our education system. You send a kid inside a factory called that education, and creativity, leadership, all that get drained out. And the final product is a hard, engineering certification or a graduation certification they come out with. That's not no longer going to work out. Holistic development, as in these kids direly need that learning, literacy, and life skills. And we can call them as 21st century skills, as it is widely known. The learning, literacy, and life skills. These are very essential. Like a couple of them Sashi brought out on the cognitive front, on the leadership front. There are a lot of aspects related to creativity, critical thinking, communication as such. Communication, when we talk about it, is not about knowing English language to communicate. It is about active listening, more, precisely, and about literacy. Now we are being bogged with so much of information in this, internet world. Are at least as elders, are we literate enough when it comes to information, media, and technology? Are we being able to embrace that and let our, young minds, take on it? And of course, followed by those life skills, which are like leadership, flexibility, productivity, initiative, and all those aspects. So these components are the crucial ones. Now, traditionally, for the higher education's sake, there is something called profile building is what is being called out or talked about, since many years. For example, if a child wants to get want to clear IP MAT and get into IIM Indore for a 5-year integrated program, it is not just about finishing 12th and clearing IP MAT. They also need, various other extracurriculars and co-curriculars with, part and parcel of their profile. This is what I'm talking about, profile building. Now, in the years to come, we have to switch gears and talk about the holistic development. Are we teaching our children, and let's not blame the education system and schools. As elders, we are responsible for our product. So it's a 20-year project. So are we taking enough steps as parents and elders in building certain skills? For example, how many of us really take effort and teach negotiation as a skill at home to our children? When we were of that age, it was part and parcel of the family. When I was of 8-year-old, I used to get an opportunity to take a, bag and go to the nearby, sabji bazaar, and then take 10 rupees in hand and make sure that you get a quality product, make sure you bargain it, without compromising the quality, and fill that bag with the 10 or 5 rupees and then come back home all alone. Today, you go to a supermarket or a mall, everything is barcoded. You just put it. They don't even know where cash comes from, how to, count the change. Literally, some of the kids are so much of it. So it is very important as an elder and parent to inculcate these life skills. I just took negotiation as one example. Collaboration is another one. Because of these nuclear families, how many of them, and especially pandemic, everybody was stuck to gadget, including us, because we don't have any other option. So these skills are very important. For example, this negotiation and collaboration I brought in, besides all those, learning, literacy, and life skills. If we don't take an effort or pass the buck to school or the teacher, that means we are not doing justice for our children. And this has to start as early as a 6th grade, 10, 11-year-old child onwards, if not earlier. Because traditionally it has been in a higher education preparation. For that purpose, the profile is being built. It starts at 10th, 11th, or 12th. That is not sufficient these days, because we all know for the fact that by 2030, 85%, more than 85% of the jobs are not invented yet. The jobs which we are going to witness in 2030, more than 85% of them have not been invented yet. So we are preparing our children for the future, which we don't know. So by just having a hard skill is not going to be sufficient. The early, the better. Start as early as a 10 or 11-year-old, 6th grade onwards, in inculcating these skills in the children, in our children. If school is doing pretty good, if it is not doing, we as elders and parents should take that responsibility. So I can give examples. So this has nothing to do with any beliefs. I try to be as much as unbiased here. For example, Ramakrishna Mission. Ramakrishna Mission. It's a movement across India, and it's also called subset of it, Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence. We should embrace those, not the very hyped, advertised, which we come to see every now and then. Here, the value-based skill is imparted in our children. I know each one of us will have our own belief system and reservations when we look at such institutions. But I strongly advocate for any child starting at a 6th grade or a 7th grade, just get introduced to an institute like this, a mission like this. So they will start learning all these skills. Everything is taught over there in different sets. Every city, every town, big town has got an office of their, they do it. And of course, there are many more. This is just one example in the interest of time. There are many more opportunities available for a reasonably, good price, affordable price, just in few hundreds of rupees. Profile building is not a lakhs of rupees affair. Yes, it is to some extent. When you look for an abroad education and all that, there are certain riders over there. So how to build, what are the opportunities do we have? This is just one example. And the skills, the 21st century skills are very crucial. And when to start? It has to start as early as 6th grade onwards, and over a period of time. And it should not stop at certain level. It should not stop at the moment the child gets to higher education. It should continue throughout the life. But if you forget how to communicate, if you forget how to actively listen, it is not just about career. For our survival in our personal social life as well, in a family life as well. As a grown-up, if you are not an active listener and active communicator with your spouse, now all the married men and women would know that how difficult would that be. We just not limiting it to the career or the job we do. So it is that crucial. So these skills are very lacking. Because of that, these young kids are willing to experiment, and there is a friction from the parent generation largely that we want to go in a steady path like we did. Let them also do. But they are very fast paced, very dynamic. So I think all in all, the early the better, the skill development, the holistic development for a child should start. And what are those skills? I listed down: learning, literacy, and life skills. And how do we do it? As an example of introducing them to the some of the institutions or mission which are running across the country. So that is how I would summarize Mishraji on what is lacking and how to develop, and what are the opportunities available. And I hope that adds value to our viewers and listeners.
Yeah, thank you. So now I'd like to bring Vidya Madam into the conversation. So Vidya Madam is a counselor, as well as she is an independent teacher. So she deals with grown-up children, I think, in the age group, mostly teenagers. So I would like to get a sense of what is that she has to deal with, how she's looking at the current education system, and what are the suggestions she has for the overall development for the future generation. Vidya Madam.
Thank you so much, Mr. Sir, for inviting me over here. And as Sashi Kumar Sir and Ramakrishna Sir well spoken about this soft skills and holistic development regarding kids. And I want to talk about this students in school, what all things to improve, improvement of these things. So first of all, the students, the thinking skills should be improved, like creative thinking, problem solving, or computational thinking, like that. So if the thinking skills, if we improve the children, they will think certain things in certain way. And also I want to tell about this applied learning, understanding the definitions and research on that definitions. And we have to create great ideas for the connecting of learning. So the supplied learning and reading skills and resources library also should provide it in certain schools. In my view, the school should experience like industrial mentoring and entrepreneurship programs should be provided, so that the students will get an idea of what these industries in what the jobs related to, and also should provide the vocational education and training also, in my view. So we can shape the children by their career paths through career talks and through mentoring also. So early exposure is very essential, as Ramakrishna sir mentioned, to ensure that students can have informed decisions and future prospects, actually. So for that, early exposure is must for all the children. And teachers also get trained for that, molding the children. And teachers, we have to provide teachers the time. Yes, actually the teachers don't get time for the extra curricular activities, whatever the children needed. So for that, teachers should get trained.
Right. Okay, so now I would like to actually give some experiments which I am trying at home. So I got two teenager children at home. So, and one of them has just completed her ninth and she's into 10th grade now. And she's in a summer break now. So as an experiment, I don't know how things are going to pan out. She starts a new project today. So she is handling the project of managing our kitchen and pantry. So what needs to be cooked, how to plan the pantry, from where, what to buy, what is the inventory, all that she is going to manage for the next 1 month, starting from today. The whole idea of asking her to do that was I wanted her to think about how to plan, how to forecast, how to take a decision, because sometimes we might get some guest suddenly and she might have to decide how to manage the extra guest at home. So this experiment I'm trying to do, I don't know how things are going to pan out. Let's see. I'm really hopeful.
Nice experiment. My suggestion, I don't know if you've already done it. Have you given her a fixed budget to work with?
Yes, there is a budget. I mean, that was the start point. The first point is there's a fixed budget. She has to, the fixed time is 1 month starting from today. And she has to document whatever she has learned. I want her to actually make a presentation once the project is over, because once she has done it, I will like my son also to take up a project like that. I don't know in what field, I really don't know, but then this is something which we are trying at home. So something which I think Ramakrishna ji, you mentioned about few episodes ago. So I thought it's a good idea to really,
yes.
And we have to take charge of what we can do rather than worrying about what cannot be done by school or other things. So this is one thing. And the reason why I'm thinking this way, it is important, is that, the jobs of future are going to be contractual. So people have to understand how to manage projects. People have to understand what is entrepreneurship. So apart from all the soft skills, I think these are the two important skills which the young children have to learn. And we can do that at home. I mean, and I'm not saying that everybody has to do the same thing, but then please do use some creativity and do some work to your children during this summer break, which they have to do it with a time constraint, with a resource constraint, and let them fail. It's okay if they fail as well. At least they will learn something out of this. So you'd like to add?
Absolutely. No, I think, congratulations, Mishra ji, for you taking that step forward. Because most parents, when we talk to them, part of this career, guidance and mentoring, how do I find an opportunity to impart this skill or X skill in my child? We have ample opportunity at our home itself.
Absolutely.
You don't have to have a business for you. You don't need to be a business family to teach business about, for your kid. You can find an opportunity in your space. Now, running a kitchen itself is a business. Why not? So look at it from that point of view. So end of the day, earlier I brought out as a negotiation, right? Now you've given her a budget. Now she might come back and negotiate. Now I keep telling that, there's a story that you give X number of resources, X amount of time, and expect X amount of quality.
Absolutely.
Now it is up to the individual to plan it out, whether to what extent they could do it.
Yeah.
Now in real life, they need to actually learn this trick. You can't go back and ask for extra money. You can't go back and ask for extra time, and you cannot compromise on quality, but you have to manage with the existing resources. So resource management.
Yeah,
eventually, that's wonderful. I think such small steps will teach them, how to actually learn these skills, and a little more. Though this is not, there will be a lot of resistance to this idea. I've already been seeing that resistance when I recommend to parents. Is more like what kids does in outside India, Western world, largely. It is not just they did because that we should also do. No, the idea is not that way. See, if you are a farmer, I come from a farming background. As a young boy, 5-year-old boy, I get or 4-year-old boy, I get an opportunity to go walk into the farm fields along with my grandfather, period, by default. So that gets into the blood. If you have, you know the nitty-gritties, right? So similarly, now, since nowadays it's all nuclear families, most of them be in the urbanization and all that, find opportunities to make them work part-time. There are ample opportunities. Students work part-time during evening, and then they go for college. They go to college, during the day. When you typically look at it, give them an opportunity, or give them an opportunity to volunteer. I quoted an example of Ramakrishna Mission, Vivekananda Institute of Human Excellence. They conduct summer camps, month long, 2 months long, or 4 or 5 weeks long, and you let your child go there and volunteer for that work, besides learning, part of that summer camp.
Fantastic.
So they know, they as a volunteer, how to serve people, how to be empathetic. A lot gained, which we may not be cautiously teaching them at home. Of course, as a family, we will give a lot of, there's a lot of skill exchange happens.
Yeah.
So making them work part-time during summer, short-term assignments. It's okay. What are we going to lose in it? Nothing.
Yeah,
we're going to gain. Our children are going to gain a lot of skills. So I think that's a good idea, and I'm glad that you're doing it, Mishra ji, and I'm sure our other friends here on this call, or who are going to view it, will take that as an opportunity.
Yes, exactly. The exposure of the world of work provides real good opportunities for students to build connection with professionals, actually. So it is a very good exposure we have to do with our children also, to the real world, actually.
Right. So if they have already have a career, sorry, I'll just add one more point. If they have already shortlisted a career, if they have already made up their mind that they're going to do certain career, or opt for certain career, then let them start learning the practicality of that career at an early age. Yeah. If a 10th grader has decided that he or she want to go into a research, give them an opportunity to spend time for a few days, few weeks, or few months in a research lab in the choice of their career. Yes. At least take them on a trip to, I know some of these might be, I'm not talking about somebody wants to do a space research. I'm not recommending to take them to NASA in Florida and then, show them all that. That may not be possible to all of us, a time constraint, various other constraints, but see what happens, in the nearby. That's very important, and make them part of those activities would actually, ignite some fire in them, because verbal communication has to be limited. Let them go that modes of kinesthetic learning and visual learning.
Yeah. Shashi, you would like to add something?
Yeah, I think I love the example that you gave about working in Pizza Hut or Domino's. I think it's absolutely important that children who are born into middle-class families do take up such jobs when they have breaks, especially I'm not talking about very young kids, but before you're going into college, or maybe if you're in your 12th standard and you're waiting for your results to come out, there are multiple benefits to it. One, it teaches you about dignity of labor. It's a lifelong lesson. It teaches you how to respect people, because at some end you're at the receiving end. For example, when I finished my 12th, much against what my parents wanted me to do and much against what other people would think about me, I worked in exhibition stalls. And I think to me, it built a great amount of respect to people who, when I walk into a retail store, I respect people who work there, because I know what they go through. I know how tough and how complex that job is. So I think it's pretty important that we are able to appreciate and understand and give respect to labor. And this is one way of doing that. Two, it also gives you a sense of responsibility. I think you are responsible for something. Let's say you're going to deliver food for Pizza Hut. You are responsible for ensuring that somebody has their food in time. I think that is a great way of inculcating that. And third, and more importantly, outside of your family system, you're handling money. You are responsible to the store to give or collect money. So I think I would definitely recommend, early exposure to work for irrespective of what you want to do. Like you said, you could want to be a space scientist, but it won't hurt your cause if you start off by delivering some pizza.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. And I think all the speakers have really made all those points. We can take some questions if there are questions which any of the participants or any of the people who are present today would like to ask. They can either unmute and ask, or they can type in. I will try to read it out.
No, sir, I have small thing.
Oh,
This is
great.
Srinivas Reddy.
Okay, yeah.
Yes, Srinivas.
Yeah. Sir, the topics are very well with the Shashi sir and Ramakrishna and Vidya ma'am. The topics are good. As present day, we are preparing for the future. And as we have to engage in a day-to-day activity, talking like negotiation skills and soft skills are very much important. And keeping in the future what we experienced the last 30-40 years in building our career and where we are now. So the expectation from the child, as Ramakrishna sir said, is not that young minds are very much stress oriented, and they have to be engaged in with the nature, as like sir said, with the farming or in habits like music or roof gardenings. 10 years back, 20 years back, there is a IQ based jobs. In later again, after 5 years, get to EQ based, emotional quotient. And somewhere with what Ramakrishna sir said, where I also follow with Vivekananda books and all, the SQ is more important to them to make aware of the spiritual quotient, which will they balance the stress and they understand where we are. Even they are working the work of dignity, wherever they are working, they should adopt that they enjoy the work. You should not feel that the only economics will make them decide the life skills. So these 3, 4 parameters, which is stress is the most important to how to reduce the stress in this competitive world for the future.
Fantastic. I think good point. Ramakrishna ji, you would like to respond?
Yeah, wonderful. Srinivas Reddy ji, thank you so much for bringing those points. Spiritual quotient. I was actually refraining to take the conversation towards the spirituality as a skill because I wasn't too sure that how many of them would be receptive to it. Now that you brought up that actually gave me a free hand. But wonderful, definitely very, very well said. Stress is a big factor because, see, we are all built to compare ourselves with other parties, other person. You know, we need an ideal person or an ideal in our life, no doubt about it, to draw some inspiration. But comparison is actually killing us. Comparison is actually creating a lot of stress. And that stress is actually leading to so many, unfortunate events. A denial, a failure is not being able to, take in a right sense. People come from top-notch educational institutions and serving as at a very high position, have not learned how to handle failure. As a result, they have taken some extreme steps in their lives.
Very much, very much.
So that's an unfortunate thing. So I'm based in Hyderabad, IIT Hyderabad. In that last, this was like basically before pandemic time frame, 2018-19. There were 3 suicide attempts. I think 2 of them have actually passed away. Is purely because of stress. One of the psychological factor identified was because of stress. And one example out of that was they were good at, clearing the entrance examination and getting to IITs. But later point, they were not able to. Until that time, it was all about they were competing in their group who are of less, you want to call them an intelligent. Now, after getting into IITs, this one is equal to some 100 other people who are also of the same level or even the better level. Now the competition become more intense, as you rightly brought out. That has led them to stress, and they were not able to deal with the academics, though they are a topper. So that stress is a very huge factor, and I must admit and bring it to the forum here. Now parents are actually most parents are trying to see their unfulfilled wishes through their children. That's another big problem, at least I see. So there are many aspects. As parents also, we need to be receptive and adaptive enough to embrace them and then take it. But I think the bottom line we are talking here is that holistic development with different viewpoints. Thank you so much, Srinivasji, for bringing that up. And then let's see if we
I would like to add
else.
here. I'd like to add here regarding the comparison bit. That is the reality of our life. I think comparisons are there even after we are dead. Starting from the day we are born, even after death, there'll be comparison actually. That's the part of our life. That's the human thing. So I think at home, we have to sensitize this to our children that they will be subjected to comparison. We are all subjected to comparison, and we will continue to be subjected to comparison for throughout our life and after life also. So we have to accept what we are. And I think we are all individually fantastic. I mean, we have some special quality, all of us, and our children as well. So let's try to focus on things which are fantastic with every individual. And that's the way to take it forward, because if we compare on what we don't have, we'll have a miserable life actually.
Yeah, absolutely. We are all original. Original is unique. Let's not try to duplicate by looking at somebody.
Yeah.
So let's be ourselves.
Any other question from participants?
So, my question, this is S. Das Gupta here. My question is, can we teach fearlessness?
Good. Sashi,
yeah, I think that's a very Sashi ji, go ahead. Sorry.
Sure, no problem. I think we should teach fear, because only the paranoid survive, right? Not just fear. You need to be paranoid to survive. And I even if you ask the bravest person, it's not about the absence of fear. It's about how you deal with fear, which is more important. Sorry, please go ahead.
No, I think it's a very relevant point you made.
Yeah, it's a very good point. So now I would say, Das Gupta ji, are you fearless enough to teach fear? I mean, I'm not asking you as parents, as elders, are we fearless enough to let our child experiment in whatever they are? I'll tell you a simple example. Let us look at a toddler in our home. Let us look at a boy or a girl who's crawling literally. And that boy or a girl would try to climb up on some objects, to a chair or onto the cot or something or the other. Beta gir jayega. This is the word most of us we will use when that toddler is trying to kind of climb up something. If we are, as long as we continue to use beta gir jayega, that means we are not prepared as a parent to let the child experiment. I'm not saying to leave the child alone to do whatever he or she wants. Definitely some care, caregiving is required. So I would say this way, instead of saying, you will fall down, let's say at least be careful, because our mind, processes these instructions before it could take action. So if we seed that, if we sow that seed at a 2-year-old saying that, no, if you're climbing up, there's a, you may fall down. Instead of saying that when you are climbing up, you have to be extra cautious. So I think that's a simple way, right from an early age. But yes, we should and we could, no doubt about it. But not one way would work with every kid. One size doesn't fit everybody. We keep hearing that, right? So at the same time, we have, the caregiving should be, in the background, but the foreground, we should let them experiment. And a little more career related example. How many parents today would really want to explore beyond medicine and engineering? Things are changing, but the rigidity is still there. Let's say if you go down south and ask a parent and a child, they want to, appear for NEET exam, they want to appear for JEE exam, and they finally want to become a UPSC Group 1 and want to become an IAS. God bless, them. They don't want to leave any option. And, maths, physics, chemistry, biology, and computer science. These are all the subjects that they pick up in their 11th and 12th. This is another angle to it. But I think to summarize, yes, we should and we could. Fear, we should teach them how to fear, and we should also teach them fearlessness. It will only happen once we are prepared. Look at the toddler example.
If I may interrupt, it would be interesting to ask each of us that what we are doing today and what we learned in our graduation, undergraduation, post-graduation, are we doing the same thing, what we learned, or have we completely moved away? Because I know, for example, Mr. Mishra is an engineer. Now, his career has completely moved away from, I'm not talking about the skill, whether they're relevant or irrelevant. But if you say, I take his example because he's leading this initiative, it would be useful for parents to ask what they were taught at school or colleges and what they are doing today, how much correlation is there within that.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look, Mishra ji has his own transformation, and I am another example. If you're not aware, so I spent close to 20 years in the field of IT, and I transformed completely to a mentor, a career mentoring, and I do this full time. So likewise, some of us would have, it's not about changing company, doing a similar role. It is complete transformation. So I would consider that I have embraced my fear. I've taken that, chance.
Correct. And so, I mean, when we are as parents, or when we are talking to parents, it might be useful to just highlight it to them and us also of what we have learned and what we are doing may not necessarily be the same.
Absolutely.
And that might be a fair example for them to relate to when it comes to different career tracks. And also the changing environments or the changing circumstances which has led to their current situation vis-a-vis what they were earlier. it might be useful for them.
No, very, very valid. Very well said,
Yeah.
Gupta ji, Das Gupta ji. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good point. And I'm glad that you brought this up. So I'm going to shamelessly copy this point in my next one of my on few sessions with my mentees, with your permission. Thank you so much.
I would also like to question what you mean by learn. Is it what you were taught, or what did the journey teach you? For example, I did my hotel management in before I sort of moved into what I did. As I started, I went into my second year. I was absolutely sure this is not what I want to do for the rest of my life. But does that mean that the skills that I picked up in those 3 years, both inside and outside of classroom, did not help shape what I did later? I think it did. I think when I learned hotel management, customer satisfaction and delight was something that was a focus in every single thing you did, because the customer is the queen, she's always right, is something that is ingrained in hotel management, as you learn, right? So did that help me in my career? I think it did. It did a lot of good as I went through my sales career. So I think when you talk of specific learning journeys, rather than just focus on maybe what are the things that were even within what was taught in the classroom, but it's not just what is apparently taught, but what is also taught over and above. For example, Siva's journey in his career, he started off as an engineer, and then if I remember right, he moved into selling heavy equipment and machinery, right? So I'm sure a lot of what he learned in engineering contributed to that journey. And in his journey through selling heavy machinery and career, he would have picked up a lot that would have shaped his desire to do what he's doing today.
Agreed. I think all of us, I think myself, Mr. Ramakrishna Bodu, and yourself, and many of us in this call have learned during our journey in our careers and try to adapt as we went on. I think some of us, as I think Ramakrishna ji mentioned, we could take control of our fear or embrace the fear, and some of us didn't. So and I think Shashi, you also, you changed totally from hotel management to what you're doing today. So and I know when you started your professional journey, it was in a totally different field altogether. So so probably the common thread amongst all of us is probably the thread of adaptability and the willingness to learn. And as we go along, I think the work of future is something which is not just for the young people. I think people who are right now with us, who are in the mid-career, also need to adapt this in their lives, because what we are going to do in about 10 years time, we don't even know. So I think constant learning, unlearning and relearning is something which all of us have to do. Why it is more important for younger children? Because they are going to start. They have not even started. So for them, the entire work life is going to be about that. For people like us who are in the mid-career, it is also important, because I think the concept of retiring from work is going to vanish. You need to work throughout your life. I think that is something which is going to be also requirement for our lives also. So which means that after your formal work is over, suppose you're working somewhere in an organization, don't think you can hang up your boot and just go anywhere. I mean, you probably have to really still work and earn a decent living till your last days. I mean, this is something which I see from the point of view of a mid-level, mid-career professional. Would you like to add anything in this?
Working beyond retirement, if there is a retirement at all, defined retirement age at all, because particularly in government right now, in most of the government services, the retirement age is getting extended. It is no longer, earlier it used to be 55, then it became 58, then 60. Now, in some cases, particularly in the teaching profession, it is going up to 65. Okay. Now, while we are still wedded to the concept of a retirement, like you said, there will be work beyond retirement. We need to work. Now, will that work necessarily be to earn money or to keep yourself engaged or to keep yourself mentally agile is something that we need to explore. It may not necessarily be, because at that stage in life, possibly people would be more inclined towards looking at engagements, meaningful engagements, rather than the money part of it. So maybe a area to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a combination of both. I think it all would depend on how financially you're planned, how sorted you are. If you're sorted very well on financial part of it, obviously you want to engage intellectually and meaningfully and purposefully beyond your retirement. But if you are not sorted, then obviously you need to continue to work for being economically viable for your rest of your life, because I think the span of life is only increasing. The health care industry is much better place, so we will probably live much longer than most of our forefathers. So which means that we need to live healthy for a longer time, and hence I think we need to be agile intellectually going forward, and also economically viable. I think that's what I see.
Yeah. So
Ramkrishna ji, you
coming
would
back
like
to the economic quotient of it,
Yeah.
I think as part of our own education and the children's education, we need to teach them financial independence pretty early in their lives. We had no, at least I personally speaking, I had no clue. I still don't have a clue, very honestly. I mean, okay, we have all worked for 20, 25 years now, and some of us have saved, some of us have not. We have planned for a certain span, but with these children, one of the things that could be taught or could be ingrained into them is financial planning right at the beginning of their careers.
Absolutely.
If that can be taught, that would be really helpful for them, amongst one of the many life skills that they need.
Absolutely, I completely agree, and that is something we in fact talked about in one of our episode as well. The career planning is not about just choosing the career; it's all about the 360-degree planning, and that includes the financial planning.
Okay, very nice, wonderful points. I think I would just put up one point. I think we are almost little getting close to our schedule here. So it is not the strongest of the species that survive, nor the most intelligent, but the the one which is most responsive to change is going to survive. So it doesn't matter, what skill or how much intelligent are you. If you are at the end of the day are not willing to adapt or embrace the change, and which is the only constant in this dynamic world, I think that individual is going to lose the race, will be put behind. So that's how it is, and it is very apt for children to embrace that adaptability as a skill, which is very crucial.
I think we are almost at the fag end of the program, and so I would like to thank our guest speakers, Shashi, Ramkrishna ji, and Vidya Madam, and of course, great contributions from Srinivas and Sayantan towards the end of the program. Key takeaway obviously is be a lifelong learner and be adaptable. I think if you can pick up these 2 points from our discussion today, I think that would be good. So thank you so much for everyone to invest time today, and really hope that you get something valuable from this. Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.